Good evening. I'm Mrs. Marcella, and this is the Futures webinar series. And we are here tonight with our third installment. And we are hosting tonight Bob Hand from class of 2001, who is a senior producer at CNN's Erin Burnett Out Front. Welcome, Mr. Hand. And you are going to be talking tonight about your career in TV production and news media. And I'm going to read a little bit about your bio before we get into what we're going to be discussing tonight. So Bob is a senior editorial producer at CNN's Erin Burnett Out Front. Since joining CNN in 2011, with the launch of the show, he has played an integral part to the senior production team and has become one of the longest running primetime news shows at CNN. He leads the booking team and ensures each show has a strong lineup of daily newsmakers. Currently, he books medical professionals, government officials, and medical studies regarding the coronavirus pandemic. He's also working on long-term bookings for the show, international projects, most recently on an investigation into the terrorist financing in Qatar. Before joining CNN, he worked with Erin Burnett at CNBC as an anchor, producer, and booker. In addition, he worked on shows like Squawk on the Street and Street Signs, and a number of long-term investigative series, which included the Emmy-nominated piece Transomnia, excuse me, I'm saying that wrong, Transomnia, did I say that right?
Transomnia.
Okay, An American Business in Iran. He has produced international shoots across 4 continents, helped produce live shows from the Middle East and South America, and has started his career as an NBC page, working in sports and guest relations for studio audience shows like Saturday Night Live and Conan. And you graduated from Syracuse University in 2005, with your major being television, radio, and film. So welcome. That is quite the resume, and I hope I can live up to your production skills with my limited Zoom skills that I have. So thanks for joining us, and we're gonna get right into it. So I'm gonna move this right over here. Again, the beauty of the Zoom here, and we're gonna talk about. Oh, I don't want to cover up Erin there. We're gonna talk about your career journey. So tell us how you got to where you are today. I can see some familiar faces on this particular slide, and talk to us a little bit about your journey from St. Joe's to where you are.
Yeah, so at St. Joe's, I was pretty active in extracurriculars. I was on the football team for 4 years, and that was just when Coach Dell had started. I think his first year of coaching was my sophomore year of head coach of varsity, and then and then I was in student government, so close with Ms. Anderson. Dr. Walsh was around there too, so those were my 2 big activities, and I feel like I definitely learned a lot from there. And it took up a lot of times on top of your studies. And then I went to Syracuse University for Newhouse School for communication, which I thought was great. It was great to get away from also, like, I'm one of 3, so my brother and sister had gone through St. Joe's first. I feel like a lot of people had go through St. Joe's and they're part of a family, so I did go to a different college than them. I felt like that was more like because like I think you go to St. Joe's and everyone's like, oh, you're Joe Hand's little brother, and like once you went out and got to Syracuse, and I love Syracuse, went to every football and basketball game, huge fan, and I'll talk more, but I did the TV station, which was like amazing and got a lot of experience. And then I did the NBC Page program, like Kenneth from 30 Rock. I was kind of, it was fun. You met basically 70 people that just graduated from college. It was like a post-college year. You were making $10 an hour in New York, working 6 days a week, and you just hung out with these people. You worked with these people, and now, they're VPs of companies and things like, that we've all done pretty well for ourselves. We all stay together because we spent that year together as a page, and like you were saying, working Saturday Night Live, you would go work Saturday Night Live, and because you were a page and you sat people in the audience, Saturday Night Live would invite you out to an after party. So you would go to like Sunday morning at 6 a.m. and like have these great experiences and be like next to people like John Hamm and John Mayer out at this party too. So it was cool for like a 22-year-old in the city. And then not knowing what I wanted to do, 2 of my friends who were pages said, hey, there's this new show opening up at CNBC. This woman, Erin Burnett, and this Mark Haynes, who had been on CNBC for a while, and they need a page. So I applied. The thing about the page program is very tough to get assignments. So I was one of 15 people who applied, and I got it because I knew the 2 other pages were like, oh, go with Bob. And I started getting Erin coffee, and then I started to do research for her and fonts and producers. And now I've been their senior producer for, so I've worked with her for 15 years, which is a fun, unique path in TV because it's basically not what you would do. Every path is different. And like, basically, if you talk to someone like I worked with someone for 15 years of TV, it's very different. Some people, every 2 years, they're like, we're going to try this adventure or that adventure or jump around. And, so everyone's different. So mine was just kind of like, I found this great person to work with. And, it's been a great working relationship for 15 years, and just work with some of the same people I've worked with now for 8 to 10 years, which is unheard of in the industry of news.
That's awesome. And I do have one quick question. You said Kenneth the Page, like in 30 Rock. Did you have to wear the blazer?
I had to wear the uniform. I had to wear the same uniform they wore. So that show came out a year after I was a Page, and that was like our uniform. And then after that show came out, they changed all the uniforms to make it more professionally working. But I have this like peacock tie somewhere in my thing, and you had to wear this big peacock thing there. And yeah, it was always like, you enjoyed it. It was some of the fun is like these experiences of just touring people around NBC. And there were sometimes you would go and you would like have to learn all these things on the fly because they were like, one day I did a tour and me and my friend were doing it. And we realized there was a Japanese tourist, and they did not speak English. So they had no idea what we were saying in every room. We were just trying to play videos and like
keep them entertained.
Get all entertained with hand gestures and like then simplifying like what NBC is.
That's awesome. All right, let's go on to the next slide. So we see that familiar uniform. What position did you play in football?
I played defensive end and tight end, but I mean, yeah, so mostly defensive end was where I mostly played defense my junior, senior year. And then, I did student government. And football, I think, taught me a lot. It definitely is like a lot about team, which I think is really important for people to learn in the career is like, and that's what attracted me to TV down the line was those lot like team. Like, obviously I was not a big guy. I was maybe 5'8", 180 in high school. So it was not like I was going to go to Syracuse and play football there. But what it taught me playing football was like, you saw, all of a sudden I saw TV and I saw a control room of, 10 or 11 people with a director, with an EP, it felt like the same thing. Like there's no way we can put a show on the air without all 15 or 20 people. And it's the same way like when you did a play in football. It's like you can't score a touchdown if every 11 people on don't do their job. And that's the same environment that TV is. And that's why, a lot of, I know for our team, we had 2 guys who ended up at ESPN too, like the quarterback and the other tight end, because there's a lot of comparisons to that. And I mean, a lot of companies or jobs, a restaurant could be the same way where it's like, it's not just a chef, it's, the whole kitchen.
Right. Yeah. That makes
so
sense.
That's kind of was like the team aspect of football has really carried over. And and my wife works at NBC Sports. She's the same way. She was did all these sports in high school, and then in college, it was like television has that sports feeling. And then in terms of student government, I thought that was a great experience because like now I'm covering politics every day, and it's like, why are they doing that? How do we hold them to your fire? Like when you were in student government at St. Joe's, I think you got asked a lot of questions from everyone in the hall because you went up there, you gave your speech in front of everyone knew you, and they're like, how come we can't change this? How can we, not have to wear a uniform on Friday? How can we? And they would just ask you all these questions that then now all of a sudden now you take that now to be like, hey, why is this the response right now? Or why is, and that's, you learn from student government with all these people asking you questions that to go on, you kind of have, and you keep an interest. And I think keeping interest in politics is good because no matter kind of what field you go into, I think people are always kind of following that and seeing what's up with that.
Tell us a little bit. I see this is CNN's now. Is this the control room? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, so this is the control room at CNN. We just moved into brand new studios in Hudson Yards at like May 2019. So basically, we'll have about 10 to 12 people in a control room, a director or TD, and that's the director you're looking at right there. But in front of you, you'll see basically two TVs. One's what you see on TV, and one's what you see as preview. So the director will listen to the line producer and the executive producer and take that second shot. So I think in that shot, you'll see Aaron's on with the reporter, Jeff Zeleny. And then the other shot is just a one shot of Jeff Zeleny. So if he's in the middle of the report, we might go to that one shot or vice versa. And then all these other cameras up there. This was a remote show, so everyone was kind of at this location. But like if we have nowadays, you'll have 5 or 6 different guest shots up because everyone's kind of in their own positions, and those will be in those other cameras. That thing you're looking at above Jeff's head is like the rundown. We run it out of iNews. So that, and you see what's on the camera screen there is also what's there, and everyone has the same thing.
That's really cool. How does this differ from when you worked at the student TV station at Syracuse? Is this more elaborate? Do you feel like colleges have,
Some colleges do. The CNN one it's a very nice control room because it was just built for 2019. So it was just redone, and our sets were just redone. So I would say CNN is very top of line right now. It is different, and also like, and then our sets at the student TV station at Syracuse was out on a small scale, and it was great to learn from, because the best part about a student-run TV station, and I think everyone, if you're interested in it and you're doing it now at St. Joe's, but you want to do it in college, because it's the only time where you just get to do it. And like that was the thing, you would be there at 2 or 3 in the morning trying to execute something, and that's the only time you're going to have to do that, where you kind of are in charge. Like you're in charge of your own thing. You can make mistakes. You can do, and we loved it because it was fun.
That's cool. So let's talk a little bit more about that. For students out there tonight, the folks that are interested in getting into TV production. That's got to have, we were talking a little bit before we started recording tonight, a little bit about how TV has changed since you were studying at Syracuse, and probably had a bit of an interest back when you were at St. Joe's. So talk to us a little bit about that, if people are interested in getting into it now.
So, you guys have so many more tools than I did, and this is what I think someone joked with me when they saw my graduating year. They're like, "01, you're really, really old." And I said, no, it's a typo. It should have said 07 was my joke back. But basically, to show you, I did not have YouTube until I graduated college. It was a new phenomenon. When I was at SNL, it was Andy Samberg's first year, and he did that whole Chronicles of Narnia thing. And like people were like, no one knew what YouTube was. NBC didn't even know what YouTube was in my first year. So like now you guys have Instagram, you have YouTube, you have these different things. You can put out all your different reports or all your different hits or whatever. Your digital profile though is your brand. So you can have that and really sell that, whether it's like you like this or you like that. Like people have their own personal thing. Like if you look at my personal Instagram, a lot of it is just food, because that's what a hobby of mine is, food and cooking. And that's the brand I'm putting out there. I'm not in, and if you want to do a news brand, just think, how do I put out a news brand? If you want to do an entertainment brand, how do I put out an entertainment brand? And also some of this is, I tell Twitter is the greatest thing in the world and the worst thing in the world. And that's the thing, is like, if you're on Twitter, how will this tweet be behind your brand? Because as soon as you're an entertainment reporter, you should not be giving your opinion about the news. And that's my philosophy on it. And that's where you're going to get in trouble. So if you want to be an entertainment reporter, follow entertainment. You know what I mean? If you want to be a sports reporter, think about that too. I wouldn't mix and match. And I think like you can build your brand really quickly. And that's why I was saying too, gain experience. A lot of people in TV don't like major in TV, but also like gain experience to like, if you want to be on air, the best thing to do is learn how to write. So some of our latest talents CNN's hired have all been writers and worked at Washington Post or covered the Trump campaign. So like, I think like that ability to write or that ability to have, like Chris Cuomo is one of our big talents. He got a law degree. Like Erin, I've worked with her forever. She was a vice president of a bank. She was also, TV might have not been the first thing in her, but by having that experience, she could talk about the financial markets in a layman's terms during the financial crisis, and everyone then knew who she was. She was on the Today Show and Meet the Press kind of every single day. And that experience is how, I try to book guests with experience, like these medical contributors, like Sanjay Gupta is a perfect example. He's a doctor, and knowing that and speaking, some of these tough medical terms in English is really what, fuels people to get on TV or get on. And this is more specifically for people who want to be on air. As a producer behind the scenes, going and learning production skills, I think help you. But as a on-air person, maybe thinking outside the box and saying, how do I gain experience elsewhere is a smart way to go about it.
Yeah, and you talk about, asking questions and then finding the answers. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that might be the hardest thing when you start your career, because you're like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake, and am I going to look foolish if I make a mistake? How do you navigate that in a really fast-paced environment like TV?
I think the biggest thing too is definitely to some of it is ask questions in the beginning. Like if you come out of college, or even if you're interning, and you think I am the smartest person in the world who's 22 or 21. Again, everyone does it differently, and you want to do it right. And you're going to start on the bottom of the barrel, and they're going to teach you, hey, as a PA, I need you to get these things done. Or I'll tell an intern, hey, can you get these 5 things done? You can ask a question or two to make sure you get it done right, or how I want it done. And that's what I'm saying is like that type of beginning, you want to kind of ask questions. You kind of want to figure out how the people around you want it to get done. And you want to also and that's kind of, I think the biggest thing is that some people are just like, oh, I'm going to get it done this way. It's like if you go down and you ask no questions and don't and think, oh, I'm the smartest person in the world, you do it wrong. That person's gonna be like, why did you just spend 4 hours getting this assignment wrong when you could have come and asked me something? So like that type of thing, especially when you're first starting, is like ask questions. And especially with TV people, I mean, we like to talk. So like ask us questions about how we got where we are or things you could improve on. And I think that's kind of what we want to do.
You also say watch TV and say I can do it better. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think some of it is that you guys are all probably watching TV, especially in the environment we're in. So like whatever you see on TV, like you can learn from it and be like, oh, this is an example for me to learn from. Like I always kind of say, like one of the things I look at that has nothing to do with news is like Netflix puts out every quarter like their top watch things. And some of it surprises you. Some of it you're like, oh, it's going to be, Tiger King. But there's some stuff that like their number one movie was the Mark Wahlberg movie they put out, Spencer Confidential, but it's just such a big brand name that's going to work. They're going to put a brand name talent like a Mark Wahlberg or Adam Sandler and get 100 million views for that quarter. That's why they're doing those movies. And those little things of like, trying to figure out what attracts people, what people are into, whether it's like, oh, I'm watching that new Mindy Kaling show and I see all this stuff on social, I see all this stuff, and that's the thing. And sometimes, if you watch a TV show and you go, oh, this is kind of disappointing, I would have done it like this or do it like that. Or I think that's when you become a TV producer. It's like, oh, I watch other news shows and been like, I would have done that story and booked this guest on it or that guest on it. Like, I think that's the type of thing is like whatever you're into, you would have been like, oh, I would do this or do that. Like, when I was 17, I would watch the NFL draft, all 25 hours of it, because I wanted to do sports production, and sit there and be like, oh, I would have gone to that. I would have wanted to see more college video. I would have gone seen this fun thing. Like, and that's the thing about it is like, you usually want to be like, it would have been better if they just had this or that, and some of those ideas that like you have in your head when you watch TV or you watch a movie, like that shows your creativity. And all of a sudden you'll be like, doing your own thing and loving it.
That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about, courses you took at Syracuse, or, what do you think that would add value in your particular career path?
So one of the things I think in terms of TV is it's going to be on-the-job training. So like, I think what you learn about it, you learn there. Like one of the things is like, you look at like, as you were saying, like with my background, I've done a lot of international stuff, whether it's been, and started off, booking a huge business show out of Dubai was like one of my first assignments. I didn't take any international relations course. I probably, when I graduated Syracuse, could not point to Dubai on a map. And like, I think that's kind of what it is. And like, a lot of it is like, take whatever you care about or like think is fun if you're in TV. Because like in college, I took 3 screenwriting courses just because I thought it would be a fun thing to learn how to write a screenplay and how to write a mock screenplay. Like that's what is that I think in TV there is so much more on the job training where it's like people are going to bring you in and tell you how to do it. Like some of the best people I know who were in that age would be like, hey, I can edit. I'm the best editor on Final Cut Pro. I can pull out movies. I can do these iMovies. I shoot my own stuff. Well, like you could come to CNN and they'd be like, we do not use Final Cut Pro. And they're, you know what I mean? Like they're going to all of a sudden learn a different system and that's the thing is like I've worked at NBC and CNN in my time. All of us use a different video cutting system. All the jargon's different. We use a different iNews system. So like because of that, it's like you're always going to have to learn something new when you go to that thing. We use a different way we put in the guest, even though it's the same system. It's technically 2 different systems. So it is like you're always learning different things.
That's wild. And group projects, that's a great point. Why that's important, no matter what industry you're in, right? And, we all kind of cringed. I mean, I remember back a million years ago when I was in college, oh no, the group project, like someone's just going to like bail out and then there's going to be the people that do all the work. And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the most important thing. You guys could, I mean, if someone could go back and say something to you at 17 and be like, that is the thing. You want to be someone who people want to look forward to be in a group. You want to see someone that you want to see every day. I think some of it too is like my last point too is here, like, when you work every day in a close contact like TV, or I think most professions are, where you're going to end up spending 8 to 10 hours with these people you work with, maybe even 12, depending on how long, some of the TV hours are long, and you're going to have to be likable, have to be, and the only thing that kind of prepares you for it is a group project. Because you know what I mean? Like you get annoyed at that person who comes in and, you do a group project, everyone works 4 days on it, and this one person worked 2 hours on it and then gets the credit. Like in the real world, that person gets fired. That person gets ostracized. And like, that's kind of like why I think you're like, how do I be part of this team? How do I do well? And I think like that type of group project, anything you take with a group project in college or high school, I think teaches you a lot about your workplace, because that is 100% what it is. And it's 100% about like, how do I present myself to be always hardworking and always like, a team player? Because I think a lot of that matters.
Yeah. And, I have a couple of questions that have kind of popped up from the audience. Before we kind of get into that final advice area here, because we're actually getting close to the time, the 30 minutes, I do have a couple questions. The one thing that keeps coming up is mentor. How do you get a mentor? Did you have a mentor? Were there people that just sort of mentored you along the way? How does that look in TV?
I mean, networking is key. Networking is really tough. I can say I'm probably not the best at it. But like some of that is Aaron reached, you kind of work with people who you get along with. Like even like with Aaron, one of the things that when I was first young, when we were both coming up, she was, a newer talent on air and I was a newer producer. But it's like, a lot of people who worked in that family were like, we're all like one of 3 kids and we were the youngest. And we were, things about that was like, some of it would be you working with them, you working with family, and like you just kind of intermingled work and personal. And that's kind of, people I mentor too, it's the same way. It's kind of like, oh, and I think also like, it's very tough because I think the biggest thing is like, people are like, your boss won't be your mentor. And I think that's kind of like the toughest thing that is to learn about is like, a lot of times your boss, because your boss likes the job if you're doing a really good job for your boss, sometimes they might not want to know and help you out what's next in your career. So I feel like you just kind of have to have a few mentors or even people who are outside of your situation to say, hey, you really, you should be doing this, or you should be doing that, or, you should be, you know what I mean? Like, I think you should kind of find a few different people you talk to, someone maybe in your job or someone who knows about your situation, just so you have a few different voices. Because I think that's the toughest thing about, like, sometimes people will be like, oh, you're doing such a good job for me here. I would hate to lose you and they don't give you the right advice they might have given you. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I think with mentoring, you always have to be on lookout for.
Right. Another question that came up was you had said early on in your career, I mean, you were watching the NFL draft for 25 hours and all that, so you were really focused on sports, and now you've worked for really high profile current events and the news cycle. How did you make that transition from sports to current events?
Oh yeah, so when I was an NBC page, you basically do 3 month assignments everywhere. And when I came out, I think that's one of the biggest things is sports people do have more opportunity now. But when I came out, the people at NBC Sports were the most miserable people to work with. They were all freelance. They basically would get fired from one Olympics to another Olympic.
Oh wow.
They're all living like paycheck to paycheck and working on random events, and just like that was my first assignment. I was like, these people seem miserable. And it took me a while until I got over to the CNBC one where my friends were, and they're like, people were amazing to work with. And they also were like, at the CNBC job, they're like, your hours are 9 to 4 when the markets are open. And then after that, you can go to a sporting event. You would go out with traders to Ranger tickets. And so at that time, it was like, I loved it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it took me a while to learn, oh, sports is a passion of mine. But for career-wise, I can, do news and current events as a career and then switch over to be a sports fan rather than a sports producer.
That makes sense. I have another question about, again, when you first got to Syracuse, was your major TV production or were you a communications major? And if it was something broad-based like communications, would you recommend that over TV production or media?
Yeah, so Newhouse was like 7 different majors, so you had to pick one to go in there. TRF was a bigger one, and I did recommend, if you are looking specifically at Syracuse, I recommend TRF over BDJ, which is a broadcast digital journalism, which they teach you a lot more to be on air. And I think just knowing, like to my point on being on air, some of the best on air people I know were a different major than BDJ. So I do think like TRF is a good major. And like that, it was more like a general communication major at Syracuse. But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, you can really kind of major in anything. You just kind of try to figure out your thing. Like, yeah, you figure out your thing. Like, cause yeah, I don't think there is a different, cause yeah, a lot of people we hire too. And I know, Jamie's job at my wife at NBC Sports, we'll hire just from an Ivy League or Williams or Amherst, and their majors are going to be English or going to be economy or are going to be a general, because we just so I don't think worrying about the major, I would say more general sometimes is better because it gives you more freedom.
Okay, great. Do you have any final advice? Because we're actually almost at 30 minutes exactly. So do you have any final advice for students that are watching tonight or seniors that are going to be graduating in these really interesting times?
Yeah, for everyone, enjoy it. I would just say always, my big thing was always to try new things that like you probably don't know where you would end up. And like that was kind of how I ended up where I did, was, being willing to be like, I'll try the news, even though I thought at your age, I was like, I want to be sports. And like, I think that's, always, if you find a new passion, you find something else, try it. Or also like try something different. Like if you're like, hey, I would love to tell this story, because I think the biggest thing you do in TV is you tell stories. And I think sometimes too is like, if you want to tell a story differently, then tell that story differently. Like tell it in your own voice and do it differently. Because like some of the best storytellers you remember are the people who do it in a completely crazy, voice that no one would have thought of. It's not like, oh, that person's just a copy of that other person who was around. So.
Excellent. And I see that you have shared your email. So if students are interested, should they write you a note and reach out?
Yeah, they should definitely write me a note and chat, and I can get more involved, because I think one of the things with TV too isn't always with your questions is like just a sense of like what you might want to do or where you might want to end up. And I think one of the things too is like, as an NBC page, I feel like there was a lot of sense that I got to know people who are now in entertainment or now on air or now. So like there's questions that I could maybe refer you to someone else or talk to you about that are always, as you start asking questions about the industry, I think there's always things down the line that you might have questions on and someone else might be able to answer.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so very much. Here's that last logo that we use here for the Futures webinar. We really appreciate your time tonight. We're going to be tuning in to Aaron Burnett out front. We'll know you're in the background, kind of getting everything rolling. So it's awesome that you're a cadet. We thank you so much, and thanks for sharing your information. And students out there, I would encourage you to take advantage of what Mr. Hand said and reach out to him if you're interested. He has a lot of great advice, great stories, and can certainly help you out. And again, thank you so much for your time, and be well. And we hope to see you at St. Joe's soon when we can all be together again.
Yeah, hopefully in the fall. Thank you, guys.
Take care. Thank you.